Hi everybody, welcome back to our show. This is All Things Autism and More. My name is Patricia, and with me is Irene and Claire, and we're very happy to be back again. Today we want to talk to you about some family events and how we navigate through family events with our special ones. And I think to lead us in this discussion, I'll ask Irene to tell us how this holiday was.
Okay, so basically what we agreed was for us to have a family trip to Mbale, where my father comes from. It was the first time I was taking my boys to the village because my parents live in Kampala, they live in Sonde, so every time they're visiting grannies, it is Sonde. So this time we were deliberate and we agreed that we have to take a trip to Mbale as family. But now, when you go to Mbale, you go to the village. My father is from Bumuulia, which is just at the foot of the rock. As you drive into Mbale, you will see the rock just there as you drive in. So we were like, but are we just going to sit there and do nothing? No, we had to plan. So we came up with a plan and we involved the boys. Mm-hmm. They were the master planners of this program, together with their old niece, whom we call Shaina. She's Ruth Emmy, but we call her Shaina at home. So we came up with a plan, we came up with events, they drew up a program, and in doing this there was interaction as family. Everybody was contributing. Maybe we should have board games, we should have this activity, we should play soccer. And then we were like, but why don't we also plan to trek the rock? So the epitome of the event was the rock, trekking to see the Wanale Falls. It was so involving, it was so good, so interactive. At that point, the experience was, the boys were stronger than us. And in so doing, of course, we were engaging with Yona, and Yona was among the strong boys who led through the trek. Basically, what I'm saying is it's good for you to plan, and when you're planning, get your children involved in it so that it is a whole team work that you're doing. And it takes away the idleness. It takes away making someone get stuck into just maybe, for example, these days everyone is on gadgets, even us as adults. So it gets you to all be involved and interact with one another, and it brings a great bond because the experience, it's something I can't explain. It is hard, it is tough, but the after, the conversations that you have after, the pictures, and just so I don't even forget, we even did a magazine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we wrote the story, we put pictures all together for us to have a memory of that experience.
Oh, you documented the trip into like, oh wow, that's nice.
So what I'm saying is, every time there's holiday, we need to be deliberate in planning, but we need to plan ahead. And as we're planning, we need to involve our children, involve them in the process so that you are doing this together as a team. And in so doing, I think you're encouraging even teamwork. Yeah.
That's really nice. Yeah, I think this episode is important as the holidays are coming round. The school year began and the holidays are around the corner, and parents might be thinking, what do I do with the children? Especially those on the autism spectrum or with other special needs. You're thinking, how do I keep them engaged? We've said before that these children thrive on a structure.
Yes.
And where Irene is coming from is putting a plan in place so they know. I think maybe we've said we'll share more stories, especially of how you plan with them and how you involve them. Because what can tend to happen in the holidays is because they're out of routine, out of structure, if they've been in school,
they start to have tantrums or to melt down or maybe have microaggressions. So maybe share your own story, because your son is younger, Patricia, than Irene's Yona. How did you handle him in the last holiday, which was major? It had Christmas, and the one we are going into is also, it's a long period. So how did you handle?
So Christmas was at home in Kampala, in the house. So making it interesting for the kids. What I did was I built anticipation. Nice. So I did small things. Like first of all, we got a tree. Thankfully, Javi is in school right now. So even at school, they were doing like Christmas carols and there was a bit of deco here and there, and they'd do like art projects where they would do a Christmas tree. So he was familiar. So that was very helpful in as far as planting the seed of like Christmas, and the holidays is coming around, and what are we going to do for Christmas? And now his baby brother has also been doing painting and what, so he also knew that, they probably didn't know, but he was in the zone. So what I did was I got a tree and a few ornaments for us to decorate that tree together. We switched up the house, basically, switched a bit of the furniture in different angles, etc. We actually did. Put up lights. So the house looked so much like different. It was festive inside the house. Then I love Christmas. So I have always wanted that for my kids as well. So even for like entertainment, like we're watching all the Christmas movies, and all the Christmas movies, we're playing a lot of the Christmas music. So the word Christmas was coming out quite a lot, and this whole thing of repetition is quite helpful. So in the process, of course, Javi was involved. He'd put up a few ornaments. He knew. And what really amazed me this time around, like he kept asking for the star, because he knew like there was a star that's supposed to be at the top of that tree. And I remember thinking, this is really cool. Like the fact that he already knows how the tree should be. And so he was excited, and so was the entire house. So while we didn't travel, we didn't leave the house, but on that day, when we prepared a meal, Javi helped to set up the table. Like everybody really owned the celebration. So it wasn't a regular schmegular meal. Everybody dressed up nice. Nice. There was some nice red t-shirts. So I think this is like to the families that spend Christmas at home. I'm sure very many of you do this, but those of you who are like, oh, what should we do? It's very possible to have a really fun Christmas at home when you're not traveling. You just have to remind the kids that something is different. And I think the build-up was really important because, as you know, our children thrive on routine. And they have a routine. Every day starts at a particular time. And now Christmas Day started a little earlier. The cooking was a little longer. The people in the household were a little more because we invited some family members. So I had to prepare Javi for each and every step of this planning. So like, oh yes, we're going to have Christmas lunch, and your cousins so are coming, and everyone is coming. So he anticipated company. So it wasn't one of those scenarios where people have come and the house is full and he's like, what are these people doing? And also because the family is aware of his condition and stuff, everyone is already loving and really compassionate about it. So it was quite a good experience. I think the first thing is to involve them, not just in the planning, but also on the day. Give them a few, for those who are able to, a few responsibilities, even if it's just, switch up the position of this. They feel valued. They feel like what they are doing is adding value to that day. And yeah, I think that was it for us. We had a really, really wonderful Christmas. Yeah.
I think those are important points. I like what you did talking about the build up to the holiday. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think coming into the holidays now, there mightn't be anything major, or you might have a family event. It could be a wedding, there could be a baptism happening, or a birthday party that's coming up. I think it's very important to understand the child that you have. For me, I think that's always the starting point. This is my child, this is who they are. So what are their sensitivities around crowds? So your approach of staying home can also be good. There might be a parent who thinks my child is triggered by crowds. However much explaining I do or build up, being around more than 10 people is going to be too much. We'll have a meltdown. Know your child. So bring the celebration home. There are those that can manage going outside, you take them. But I think it's very important to do that build up for their child.
Yes.
Now we are not taking for granted that every child will perceive or be able to understand the verbal communication and build up. What about those who can't speak? But they are very visual. So you can create visuals. They call it social stories. Create a story and start telling them the story, or take pictures of the child and say, so and so is coming, and you talk to them, show pictures as you talk to go along with it. Or if you're traveling, like how you went to Mbali with a younger child, create a social story and then repeat it, so that on that day when they wake up, they know this is what is happening, and this is what is going to happen, and this is where I fit in, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I think what I would add, yes?
No, I was just going to say, maybe we could also think around the things they love to do.
Yes.
And we plan ahead.
Yes.
So it may not be what you as the parent intends to do, but you know that maybe your child loves such and such an activity. Personally, I know Yona loves being outdoors, so I knew trekking would be the good thing for him. So that parent may think along the areas of what the child loves to do, and they do it together as a family.
I think so. But you see, the holidays are long. Those events are one day. So how else? What else can they do? How do they structure those other days? So an event happens one day. Christmas is one day. If it's Easter, it's one day.
Yes.
But you have a 2-week, 3-week holiday. What do they do for the children? Remember, they want a structure.
Before we go to that, I just wanted to say something that ties both of what you said. You mentioned something about your child might want to stay indoors, and then you also mentioned about what a child wants to do. Now, the irony in my family is that my son loves to go out a lot and I don't. I just like staying in. I'm very, introverted. So for Christmas, that meant a lot to me. But at the same time, I didn't want him to feel caged or limited in any way. But I was aware that there was no way festive season we were going to go outside, let's say to a mall or a park or something. He would have been so overwhelmed. That's the word, overstimulated by the crowds. And so sometimes they like those activities, but we can't do them on on those specific days where there will be large numbers and such. Hence why I put in the effort to make him excited about staying at home. But then we could do those things, and he was able to go to like water park things and stuff on the other days of the holiday, when people were not very many there, and we'd go really early in the mornings, so that we are like among the first people to show up and enjoy the park as much as possible. When the place started to fill up, he's tired, he's done enough play, it's now okay to go home. And then when she mentioned the trekking, and you mentioned how the holiday is long, I remembered us growing up. I don't know if you guys recall, but remember when we'd grow up, we never had any entertainment. There was no there was no social media or as much tech or what. But we used to take walks, like random walks in the neighborhood. As long as you were safe, you had like an adult or somebody around you to make sure that you would go and come back safely. taking random walks, to just, discover things, but also have an opportunity to tell each other stories. Another thing I noticed was it's a rare opportunity for us as a family to always have our meals together, because usually when we're in school runs and the work is hectic and everybody does things in a given time, and for the children, because they're in a particular schedule and routine, sometimes you can come home and they've finished eating dinner and what. So during the holiday, one of the things we did together was have meals together. Nice, and just gather together. I think that the spirit behind all of this is being intentional.
That's true.
Yes. It's being intentional, and being intentional about spending time with the kids, not just giving them activities to do, but actually being involved in said activities. When they're in their holiday, it's your opportunity to reach out, not just for the special needs children, even neurotypical. It's a chance to have a conversation with your child. It's a chance to engage. Even when your child is nonverbal, it doesn't mean that you don't spend time with them, like one-on-one, and just be like, even when Harvey, there was a time, I think that's why he's such a good listener. When he was nonverbal, there were times when I would speak to him, and I would have such a mature conversation with him, and he was not responding verbally or anything, but he would stay there and just listen to me. And I'd be like, this has made me really upset, because now what does she think I am? Which is really venting, and my kid is like 4, 3. But he was listening to me, and we grew closer. And it's so funny, when you have a nonverbal child, they can, even having a conversation with them, it's not insulting. It's not like they feel like, why are you talking to me when I can't talk to you? They still want to be included. They want to be seen and heard. So giving them those moments where it's now just you and I, it's just you and I. Even if you're just walking in the compound or something, that is quality time. It's precious. I think if we get any time off, especially because as parents of children with special needs, you have to really work hard in order to afford the therapies and the special needs education and all of this. We work really, really hard. So if we get breaks, like in the Easter break, it's so good. It's a really good opportunity for us to spend time with our children and get to know them, and just let them know that we see them and want to be with them.
Actually, I remember a parent, Richard told us that whenever the boy is in school, he follows structure, follows instructions, and he seems to be calmer. But when he gets home, everything just goes haywire. And that's because there's no structure. We need to have that consistency and be deliberate. We should be intentional and say, for the coming holiday, what are the events? And you plan them out ahead of time. What most parents do is the holiday comes, and then that is when they start thinking, okay, now what? But it shouldn't be that way. Now is the time for you to begin to plan. The children are coming in a month's time, in 2 weeks' time. What are the plans for the 3 weeks that they will be with us? And have a time, because some of us are working parents, you may not be available for all the 3 weeks, but at least take time off. Take time off and be deliberate. But even while you're at work, have different activities that are going to keep them engaged and keep them in a structure, so that you hand them back to the school at the same level at which they left them. Yes.
I think that is true, and I think it calls for having a support network, because as you've mentioned, our lives are busy, you're working, so that structure, it might be nice, you might print it out, put it there. Who's going to implement it? I mean, we have to be realistic. Who's going to then implement it for you? Most of us will have left maybe a nanny, a house manager at home. Do they know what your structure is all about? Do they even care what it's for? It's easier, it might be easier for them to put this child in front of the television, or hand them their phone and put music, or put them on a gadget so they can go about doing their other activities. So even that has to be thought about. Yes, I wrote a structure, but who's going to implement it if you're not there? I think those are things to think about as the holiday comes up. Who's going to implement it? What are we going to do? Some schools, I think, lately for the younger children, have some programs that they carry on during the holidays. 2-3 times a week, you can talk to the schools. Can I bring the child? Can we do this? And they continue with some routine because they're going to wake up at the same time. They're going to be wanting to do things. And the 8 hours in a day or at work or 9 or 10 are very long for them. And that can breed, like you said, they get out of hand. They get unruly. So it's one thing to think about the structure, but I think it's also very important to say who is going to implement it for you, which is why it's very important to advocate for the child with relatives, with people who are on the same page as you. They'll understand why. So if you say, at 11 o'clock you should go outside and take a walk, they'll think, but why? Yes, in the afternoon the child should nap, but why? Yes, or let them ride their bike. The child has refused to ride the bike, but all that is doing something developmental. I think also as parents we need to understand we're creating a schedule, but what is it for? If you don't know why it is for it, they just told us that we need a schedule. So kumachamu kere, you do this, blah blah. Even doing simple chores in the house is very important. If somebody is washing, let the child go and wash. That wringing of clothes is helping with fine motor skill development. Yes. So even that can be part of the schedule. Of course, they're going to disturb the person washing, but you explain. Give them their basin, give them their bucket. For you when you're washing, put a few clothes in there. Let them do. Even when you're pegging them on the line, put a small line. Let the child peg onto a line. If you're sweeping, get the child to sweep. If you're in the compound, get them to, whatever it is. That is part of the structure. It doesn't have to be anything, but within the home environment. Can they stand at a sink and wash dishes? I have a 2.5-year-old. So on the weekends, usually I wash dishes with her older sister. So my 2.5-year-old really can't. So she would watch us. So now, after a meal, she gets her stool. And she's the first one at the sink to wash dishes. And she can say plate. So she'll say plate. So we give her a plate. And she'll wash the same plate for the duration of the dishwashing. But she's part of the activity. So that gets them off their gadgets. Involve them in these little things. So that can be part of your structure in your setting. What are the events around the home that are happening? Where can they fit in? Where can you accommodate them? Yes. So that it's like that. When it's time to wash, don't send them away. Of course, cooking is dangerous for certain ages, but an older child, a teen, can be involved in the cooking. Yes, setting the table, drying dishes, putting them away, or even stacking a cupboard. It might be if you have a cupboard with plastics or saucepans, let them put them back, remove them, and let them put them back. That's an activity that can be,
Actually, thank you so much for saying that because you've reminded me. It's so funny. We do these things sometimes and we forget that they're actually essential for teaching a child independence. Yes. Ultimately, the greatest goal for every parent of a child with special needs is that one day they could be independent and can live on their own. And everything you've described is so important. And I know that we're at different levels of this thing called a spectrum. But for those who are able to teach, even if it's just one thing every day for that particular holiday. So this holiday we shall learn how to make the bed. And you make the bed every day until you feel that that lesson has been taught and you carry on even after. Let us also learn to give our children the value of simple life skills that can, first of all, enable them to live independently, but also to live with others. Because we don't know how long God will keep us on this earth for. That's true. So we have to equip them with some where possible and where applicable. Of course, I'm not saying teach if your child has any challenges, don't force them. But if they're able to learn some basic skills, I think it's more before you rush to take them to learn coding and take them to learn musical instruments. And it's important that they also know how to look after themselves at home.
The basics.
It's good for them to know the basics. And then you also mentioned conversations. It's good to have conversations. It's very, very important. Every holiday, whenever the rest of his brothers are around, we will sit around my bed, and we will fellowship with each other. I always use the Bible. The Bible is my I'm going to call it the Bible is my Bible.
The starting point.
Yes, as in it's my reference point to everything in life. And it has helped me a lot to teach them so many things. There are certain difficult conversations that you would want to have. Like, teenagers, you have to talk to them about the dangers of sex,
Being online,
homosexuality, all these things that are happening in this world. So you have to be intentional, have these conversations with them, so that in case something finds them out there, they will have had this at the source. So also that would be a good activity to engage them in. And keep your person there, whether they are verbal or not, they are following. They are following.
So all this is to say that much as the holidays are coming, do not be intimidated by the holidays. You can manage, you can cope, and you can parent your special child, your special one, the same way you're parenting the others. We've talked about being intentional, we've talked about having a structure, we've talked about having a plan, and we've talked about involving the children. Do not leave them behind if there are functions. Take them, let them be seen, travel with them. Yes? Carry them along, they're part of the family. You can manage, you can do it, one day at a time. Enjoy the holidays and see you soon.
Thank you for watching.